Yep. Keep me posted on that.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Please join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to convey Councilwoman Marcia Wilhoit's regrets for not being able to be with us this morning. All right, the minutes. Any changes to the minutes? And if not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, additional requests. Superior Court 2.
This is actually a request for depositions. They did not budget enough for the amount of depositions they've had this year towards the murder trials. This in particular is for the triple homicide case. So they are requesting $2,500 to pay for the upcoming depositions they're gonna have.
Thank you.
I move to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Highway.
Nick Parr, Boone County Highway. Got an additional request for 9194 fund, which is Community Crossings Matching Grant Program Fund. We received the check for $431,655 and has been received into that fund. We need to appropriate it to the line for the 2021 Matching Grant Program is a 2021 award. That was a second award for 2021. We were not able to encumber the funds or the appropriation because there was not funds in the account. So we have since received those and are asking them to be appropriated in that line.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, Nick. And Surveyor.
Good morning, Ken Hedge, Boone County Surveyor.
Good morning.
My additional is in the engineering line that we use to reimburse for engineering services. This is probably the earliest I've ever had to come back in, so it just shows you how much development is actually going on in the Zionsville, Whitestown area. It's moving towards Lebanon too. So these fees are all turned back into the county general. So once we use them up, we come and ask for additionals to be put back in there. So.
Okay. Any discussion? All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve it.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
On to new business. Assessor.
Hold on just a minute, Ellie.
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and do the coroner. It's not a true additional.
Okay.
The coroner has received money for reimbursement for medical records, which has not happened before. So we have receipted it into county general. He just wants you to approve moving it into his medical record line so that he can spend it out of that line when need be.
Okay, this is the item under new business.
Yes. It's not a true additional. We're not asking the state for money. We're just needing your approval to move it from county general into his line.
Can you give us just a little, just as far as background, like it's never happened before, but
Well, no, it has not. People request medical records all the time. He tells them there's a $5 fee. A lot of them just don't pay. So this company is now paying. So he got $70 last week. Woo!
Do we still give it to them if they don't pay?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's a requirement. He just tries to collect a fee for them. They don't always pay. But this company is now paying, so.
Yeah, when you said, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
who's- okay.
Yeah.
Sounds
So
good
that's
to
all.
me.
I just need your approval.
Second?
Yeah.
Who was the
Sorry,
motion?
so moved.
So moved, and Don, you're the second? Great, all those in favor say aye? Aye. Thank you. All right, Assessor Lastly.
Hello, I am just coming to the board to request that, as the council waive the requirement set by the state for our members of our Property Tax Appeals Board,
Yes.
that your three appointments, which are Matt Jackson, Lisa Batson, Walter Bertner, one of them, the state requires to have a level 2, and it's not completely necessary. They're knowledgeable enough to be able to do what they do on the board, and it's more of a service than to ask them to go down 2 different days, take the test. So I'm just asking that you guys would waive the requirement by the state.
Historically, this is something we've done. Have we done this before?
No. It's, I mean, you can, that's why I'm asking that it be done. You're supposed to have at least a level 2 on the board, and we haven't had one as of like the starting of the beginning of this year.
So we did have one. That's why we didn't have to have the waiver. Now we don't.
It's been a little while
Okay.
since we've had one,
Have you ever waived in the past?
not to my knowledge.
And just from an understanding, if we do waive it and there's a hypothetical, some kind of issue that, oh, you guys should have had a level 2 and this would prevent this issue from happening, is that a case that could come up or something that someone could say?
Well, if I was to commence the board and it's not been waived and someone were to ask if we have a level 2 and I tell them, no, we don't, then it could be an issue. But it's clearly, I had sent this, I don't know, Elise, did you send this on to the rest of the board?
I'm,
I think I got it.
okay, thank you.
Okay. It's actually on the instructions for the appeal worksheets, and it states clearly on there that it can be waived, but you just have to request it as the assessor.
And those who are, we're just talking about the appointment from the council,
Yes.
which is,
3 of them.
Matt Jackson, Lisa Batts, and Walter Bertner.
okay, and as far as their qualifications for serving,
Elisa is a real estate agent. Matt Jackson, I'm not sure what his title is, but he is a commercial broker.
right,
And then Walter Bertner is our farm guy. He knows farms inside and out.
and he's been serving for quite some time.
All three
All
of them
three of them,
actually
yeah.
have.
Okay. Okay,
Is it fair to say that, let's assume for a moment that one of them was going to have to go downtown, do the classes, take the test, that they recover funds with respect to traveling fees, whatever the cost would be to take that test?
I don't know. That's a good question because I'm not sure.
Yeah, my guess is
They
it's
would have to
probably
go
so.
2 different times.
Yeah.
Because they can't take the level 1 and level 2 test on the same day.
Mhm.
Can
So-
I see that?
Absolutely. Maybe.
How often do you convene with them?
Sometimes it's 8 meetings a year. Sometimes it's more. It depends on how many appeals we get and if we get them to agree with the informals. If we get them to agree with informals, then we don't have as many.
Is there any type of compensation or per diems paid to the board for their?
The board members get 200 a day.
are you asking this of, let's see, you have appointments to this board by the council
Mhm.
and by,
The
Fine.
commissioners as well. And it is on, I believe Bob's putting it on the agenda, for the commissioners as well.
So, is that for the same waiver?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hostetler a moment here.
We need to rewrite the statute.
We've, several of us have read it and reread it, so.
I personally, I trust that you've done your due diligence with the members that you want to appoint, their expertise. I think someone over here mentioned something about one of them. My concern naturally is if we waive, if there's a waiver that's extended and a decision is made by the board and someone says, well, they should have known this because they would have went to level 2 training or whatever it may be, they would have caught it. Like, does that make sense?
No, I guess not.
So if I was hypothetically on the board, and you convened the board and we made a decision on something, and that decision, someone challenged that decision, and they said, oh, that's inaccurate, and was like, well, we didn't know it was inaccurate because we just didn't know. And they said, well, if you would have went through this level 2 training that you said that they have to go through, is that correct? They have to go through level 2 training?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's my only concern is like, is there something that they could be missing? Because I'm assuming these trainings are updated on an annual basis.
Not necessarily on an annual, I mean, you have to do continuing education.
Continue, okay.
But the board actually can do and make different decisions than what the assessor can at the code level. So the board can kind of step outside of the box, so to speak. And they wouldn't necessarily need to go to the level 2, have level 2 classes to know that. The board itself is made up of enough people who are knowledgeable in real estate and what prices and what sales are and what things are valued at. So if the board was not knowledgeable, then I would be, I wouldn't even probably ask, but I have no doubt that the board would be fine.
I think it's fair to say that the three of them have been there for years.
Yes.
Several years.
And
All the
so
years
have
I've
my
been
other
on the
three.
board. And as the liaison for the appointments, I have complete confidence in that all three of these and the other members of that board do their due diligence to ensure that the appeal process is done correctly with all the knowledge that whether it's level 1 or level 2 licensing
Right.
would give you.
How long does the level 2 training? 2 days, you said?
So you have to take it on your own. So the level 1 and level 2, they don't offer classes, so you just have to look through the book and online stuff, and then you have to go down and take the tests on their days they have scheduled.
Gotcha.
All right.
I think Council.
Hey, Jewel, are you familiar with the statute? Because in one sentence it says, must be certified, at least one member must be certified. And then the next sentence it says we can waive it.
I know. I agree with you. It is horribly written. It starts with the premise that you've got to have a level 2 on there.
Okay.
But then, right after that, it says that requirement may be waived by the appointing body. So you can waive that requirement. That's the way I've read it. That's, I think, the way it's been applied, but it could use a lot of cleaning up.
So what happens if we do waive it?
Well, I'm sorry?
What happens if we do waive it?
So if you waive it, then that means your appointees the appointees that you have, you don't require them to be a level 2 assessor, appraiser. And my understanding of all of that process is the training for level 1 and the level 2 is to teach people as to how properties are assessed, the things that you can consider in the state of Indiana for property tax purposes. If somebody has a bunch of training or understands property market, the values and how it's determined, then that's kind of the consideration that you can give as to whether or not to waive it. But it's the board's decisions and that process can be reviewed regardless of whether you have a level 2 or not on there.
Is it, if someone appeals, is that gonna be, something that benefits them in their appeal?
So if I'm a property owner, I'm gonna raise it.
Right.
That's my
Yeah.
concern. My concern is, I have full faith and trust in the board, but if somebody appeals it and they're saying, well, you should have had a level 2. They didn't know this. They should have went to the training. That's the only issue that I have with it.
So, I mean, that's,
I don't wanna like hand someone a defense.
Absolutely.
You know,
So in all of there are not that many that go to IBTR. Usually whatever the Peterborough board says is usually what they accept. We do have a few every year that might say, well, I might go on, but never has it ever been brought up.
Is this a 1-year waiver?
I believe it would be, because you can appoint different individuals every year, so I would imagine each year it would have to be reviewed.
Do we appoint on a yearly basis?
Yes,
Yes.
How long are their terms for?
Just the year.
Just a year?
How
Is that
long
right, Kevin?
yes.
how long is the, level 2 or level 3 certificate license good for?
If you don't take continuing ed, you would lose it.
Okay.
So the continuing education, you have to take 30 classes or 30 hours within the next 2 years. Most of it's online. Part of the reason I'm coming and asking for this is, honestly, most of the board members are doing it as a service to the community.
Yeah.
You know, and to ask them to leave their daily job to go and do these classes, you know, to do the class, take the test and all of that, I just feel like it's too much for them, knowing that they're there doing it as a service and they're all knowledgeable. If they weren't knowledgeable, I wouldn't even have asked.
I don't know how it's possible. I would just say that if we move forward with the waiver, if it's possible between now and when we come back to this next year, to find and identify someone who would be willing to do this. I just don't want to give, to Jennifer's point, someone hey, you didn't do this, so I'm going to appeal. And I granted, it may not happen. And also you said for every meeting that they are summoned to, it's a $200 payment.
If it's a full day,
And
yes.
it's a 4-day. I don't know if is it even possible for us to pay somebody if they don't
That's
take
what
this
I
step?
was wondering, like, can it come out of training?
Can we, if someone said, hey, I'll raise my hand, I'll go and study, I'll go and take the test, it's 2 separate days. Is there a way that we could compensate them? Because I get it that it's a service to the community.
Right.
But I'm also equally like concerned, like, all right, well, if it's a service to the community, let us do something because you are benefiting us.
Yeah.
Budget time.
It would.
We can add it.
Okay.
In her budget.
In the state does, and I'm not sure what you're gonna know more.
It wouldn't qualify under the IC code for training.
But we could
They're not
still,
employed,
but we could,
elected officials.
but she could put in her budget for it.
Well, and the state does reimburse level 1, level 2s and level 3s. That's on a different line.
Yes.
And if one of them did do the level 2, they could get the $500 as long as it was in the budget for it.
I guess my recommendation would be at this point that if we approve the waiver, but also to work with you between now and next year to identify probably really more than one person, maybe a couple of individuals, to just make sure we have that box checked.
Okay.
And put it in the budget for
And put it
the
in the
budget
budget.
workshop this summer.
That's exactly what I think about. Sorry.
Everyone listening now is gonna challenge their property.
Yeah.
I know.
okay.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
I know, I'm like.
First year, thank you.
To that, any other discussion, I'm sorry, Donna,
Thank you.
I would move that we, apply the waiver for the Peterborough appointment.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I appreciate that. That was good.
I just need some context.
That was good.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Okay. The ARP list, I just want to bring that to our attention to make sure that we are looking it over, having discussions with the commissioners, with the county, and as that's moving forward here, you know, bit by bit. So to that end, Health Department.
Good morning, Vicki Foster, representing the Health Department since Lisa's still out. So I just wanted to say that we had asked for this because it falls in lines with the ARP grant. And we had a loss in receipts from 2019 to 2019 to 2020 of $31,177.77. due to COVID and things being closed and stuff, us not being, people not being able to travel and things, they didn't get as many birth certificates, and, they didn't build as many homes, and we didn't have as many restaurants open and all those things. So we had a loss. As you recall, each year, the last couple of years, you all have reduced our levy and have taken money from our cash balance and stuff. With all that being said, I heard Kenny's request for why he needed this money, or the ARP money that he was asking for. And it was to offset the county, some taxpayers' dollars that they were going to have to pay for ditch work, something that had to do with the bridge. I don't know, because I don't follow that stuff. But anyway, I talked to Lisa about this, and we feel certain, even though that the health department needs fall into this ARP grant, right? But we have decided to withdraw our request. So in fact that it would maybe be used, our portion of this money, which is small, but may go toward the taxpayers' use of, like Kenny's request or whatever. So, we are relinquishing that request of $31,000. Back to you all, we have been blessed, if that's what you want to call it, with COVID grants from the state and from the federal level that is supplying our needs. We didn't have a certain project for this money. We were just going to reincorporate it into our funds that the tax dollars already fund, right? So, again, we want to withdraw our request, give this back in hopes that it's put to use toward the taxpayer dollars. And then we want you to remember us at budget time that we're giving you money back.
I was waiting on that.
There you go.
Don't forget me at budget
Yeah,
time,
don't
Nikki.
forget me at budget time and don't be taking our money
I
again.
remember that. Melissa and Karen, you guys have to make sure we remember that, like little footnote. No, thank you for the update.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, old business, surveyor Kenny Hedge.
I guess I need to thank the health department.
I just wish there was a bigger number.
He's gonna ask for more.
31,000.
So, again, Ken Hedge.
Hey, Kenny, real quick,
Sure.
we didn't really follow, I really appreciate
Yeah.
what you said, and we appreciate the health department very much. And it is, that loss is one of those real basic things of what ARP money is supposed to do.
Right.
So we don't, we appreciate your attitude, we really, really do, and that's teamwork, and that's great.
Yeah.
But it's legitimate too. You had a loss, and that's what ARP funds are supposed to do. And as we look at this whole list like we're talking, we need to be still considering things like that. We're not done with it yet. So I really appreciate the health department. I appreciate what you said, and yet let's keep these discussions kind of on the table for what's the right use for these funds. I appreciate it. But
All right, thank you. Again, Ken Hedge, County Surveyor. With the ARP funds that we were just discussing, last month I came before you and was talking to you about a project which we call Grassy Branch. It's got two, I put bridges, but it's actually large structures is what you really call them, Nick. It won't be bridges, it'll be large structures that will be a part of this project that we're looking at on Grassy Branch. So I'm just asking, after we discussed it last month, to move forward with this project, to put this one actually in the line item that we can actually start spending funds out of it, because we're actually moving forward, we're ready to move forward if the council goes ahead with it with the design. And as we found out last month, which I didn't really realize that was the case, but you can't pay, if you've already paid a bill, you can't use it as reimbursement. So we've kind of put everything on hold and signing the rest of the documents until this gets approved so that it can come out of these funds. So, but with that being said, if you got any questions, we have it engineered as far as the ditch work, so what we've actually paid for that part of the engineering will come out of those funds that the property owners will end up paying for and taking care of it that way. So we're good on that side of it, but we just need to make sure we get these in place to continue to move forward with this reconstruction and with these two large structures.
What's the dollar amount?
3 million is what we're estimating. It's an estimate. When it goes out to bid, we'll be working closely with Nick and the highway department on the bridge, and whatever funds that aren't spent will be left in this ARP. So we're only going to spend whatever the bid contract is. So
The structures are about two of that, correct?
two large structures that we've estimated, what, $1 million each is what we've kind of estimated.
Yeah, ballpark. So they are currently small structures, so under 20 feet in span. They're actually two metal culverts, multi-plate metal culverts currently. They're undersized as it is, and then as we open this ditch up and make it where it's back to what it was supposed to be, to match the bridges that are actually upstream from these culverts, they'll then be larger than 20 feet in span, which meets the federal criteria to be called a bridge. So then they go into the National Bridge Inventory System that we have to regularly keep updated.
How big is this project from a
About
footprint?
5 mile open ditch reconstruction.
Okay.
So is what we're looking at. As Nick said, at 39, they're just north of New Brunswick, the next bridge upstream, the county highway was 2 years ago, replaced that bridge. And when they did it, we had this all in mind that if we ever dredged this ditch, that's what that bridge needed. So that bridge is fine. So we've just got the two downstream bridges from 39 that needs to be replaced. So.
And farmers, to some degree,
What was that?
Secretary, forgive me if I get this wrong, don't farmers pay into some of this?
And that's the reason why, actually, we shouldn't say just farmers.
Okay.
Anybody within the watershed,
Well, okay.
because there's several homes that are within that watershed too that actually are paying for this reconstruction.
Okay.
So, but yes, anybody that's within a watershed, when we do a reconstruction, they all contribute to the reconstruction cost. And so when we actually first started this project, the ARP funds wasn't something that was actually a tool that we could actually use when we actually first started into this project. Then when we got into it, we realized this would actually meet the criteria, so that's when we put it in there. So we did get started, and then after we got started, we realized, hey, there's other available funds which we've never had that on the drainage side, that we could have some kind of grant funds possible. It was all borne by the property owners in the past.
No, I appreciate that. And then from a timing standpoint, it's on pause now. When the project gets started again, what's the timeline for anticipated completion?
We'd like to start actually the reconstruction of it this fall.
Okay.
And hope to have it completed before next crop season, so before next spring. But we've got to get through the bidding process on the bridges and stuff like that. So it all depends on whether the people that's building the bridges are available too. So
Yeah, we've already started looking at some of those while they do the work. Can we bid the bridges to get it all constructed at the same time so we don't have a spot in the middle that is now not able to flow the water through as the ditch gets dredged? And then the two types of structures, both the structures look like they'll be very similar. Precast, three-sided box, culvert type of structure, trying to reduce or eliminate the need for guardrail, lengthen them out a little bit so we don't have any restrictions for farm equipment in the future. It's a heavy agricultural area. But if we can go that route and eliminate the pavement, we're going to reduce the cost of the project. It's all on gravel roads. Then we might be able to build those throughout the winter. So we get the fall time when the crops are out to be able to cut the ditch and then build the two structures during the winter time. And then by springtime, when agricultural users are back to using those roads, it'll be wide open and ready to go. It's a substantial detour. Because of the length around, there's not a lot of other roads in the area to get around them. So there's going to be some coordination with that as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that well-thought-out plan on timing and how it affects our community. All righty. Any further questions or discussion? Okay. thank you for coming to us last month to
Oh, yeah.
bring us up to speed. I know you've met with several also in addition, so thank you for just bringing us up to speed here on the plan and the benefit of it. So with that, do we have a motion to approve this expenditure from ARP funding?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay.
Thank you. And I would like,
Excuse me?
It was 3
3
million.
million.
Yeah, sorry.
like to continue working with you on the other projects that's on the list too. I know you mentioned it just a little bit ago, but, you know, if we need to sit down and discuss it with a couple of you guys on how to move forward with the next projects, because we got another reconstruction that we would like to work on, so we'd like to get that started too.
I think that ought to be a goal to get with some representation of the commissioners and the council and Kenny, and just look at the rest of the list and just have some more discussion on it. I think that's a good idea.
So I'd like to, if we could, do that, so when we come to next month's meeting, that we can kind of let everybody know what we've looked at, have that discussion. So, yeah, we'll try to get together.
So let's,
Yeah,
each of us needs to be engaged here over the course of the next
So
month.
whoever from the council side that I'll kind of help facilitate getting everybody together, if you guys let me know who would like to work on that. So.
Pockets of 2, is that okay, Jewel? Pockets of 2 at a time, is that okay?
I don't want to pour
Okay.
Kenny, when was the last time Prairie Creek was reconstructed?
Prairie Creek through town was constructed right before 1990.
But then on to Sugar Creek.
Clear on to Sugar Creek, probably 1900. Yeah, it's been
Less coming than
yeah,
it.
it's been a long time since. The rest of it is pretty much a natural stream. When you get up into Lebanon, it's kind of more of our agricultural ditches that actually need to be dredged and lowered. But when you get north of Lebanon on up to Sugar, you really don't have the deposits of sediment that actually build up to create
There'll be
problems.
enough flow to keep it clean.
There's enough flow in it to keep it clean, exactly. So, yeah, so we haven't had that deposits when you get north of Lebanon yet. We just don't see it. We do up on the upper reaches. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Boone County Justice Commission update.
Good morning. Our last Justice Commission meeting is tonight. We encourage everyone to come. Our report is progressing in a good way. Just a slight delay we had over the last week or two. I'm sure most of you know why, but we are back on track. We do anticipate having the report done on or before our next meeting, and we'll be facilitating the plan to roll that out and get folks input.
Okay, thank you. Compensation study project update from first person. Okay, Megan, would you? Okay.
There she is.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hi. Hi, well, Abby, do you have a preference on who reports out first? We have a couple pieces of this project, as you know. So we have the compensation piece and the total rewards analysis. So I can go ahead and give an update on the total rewards part.
Great, thank you.
Can she introduce herself?
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Perfect.
Could you introduce yourself to us all again, please?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Michelle Meadows. So my role is Director of Team Success at First Person. So I've been there for 7 years. So I serve as a project manager in a lot of these different pieces. I have a little bit of an interruption right now, so maybe I'll let my other team members introduce themselves while we get her to a different room. So sorry.
All good.
Very good. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Abby Steele. I am the primary analyst on the compensation portion of the project. So I've had a lot of engagement with Megan over the last several weeks, and I'm starting to have some communications and feedback sessions as well with some of your department heads. So nice to see everyone again today.
Thank you.
And I'm Katie Stowers. I am Vice President, Legal Counsel, and Consultant for First Person. I'm here just to support the team in the event. I do a lot of work with governmental entities, so in the event any unusual questions come up or things that need to be addressed by someone who's not down in the weeds, I'm here for that. Otherwise, I'll just be quiet and watch.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and give an update. We recently had an employee survey on total rewards. So you probably recall that launched a couple weeks ago. So we just wrapped that survey up on Friday. So we had 122 responses. And keep in mind, this is not counting any paper responses that have come in. So departments like highway, et cetera, that don't have, consistent computer access. So we did have the option for them to fill out a paper copy. So 122 is only counting the electronic responses. So given, a little over 300 employees, I think that's a really great participation rate initially. So certainly more will start to come in. So hopefully we get closer to around 50% of the population responding to that survey. So what we'll do is we'll start to look through the data. Just initially, I can tell you that the responses are overall favorable. So I don't want to give any statistics or anything yet until we have the full body of those paper responses counted in. But we'll certainly start looking through that. The other piece we have coming up, which everybody in this room probably is aware of, is the elected officials will all be participating in focus groups. So the focus groups will serve a couple of purposes. So one is just to share those survey results with you. So to have a forum to be able to sit down and just look through the employee survey data, not only the quantitative data, so how they responded in terms of rating to the questions, but also the open-ended. So we get a lot of rich qualitative data and just open-ended questions about, what their experience is like as a Boone County employee. We certainly want to take time to look at that together. Make sure you don't have any questions about what you see. Sometimes data, it gives us more curiosities than anything. So maybe pinpoint some areas where we want to dive in deeper. The other purpose of that focus group will be to hear from you. So each of you individually in those focus groups. We have 5 different groups coming up, soon to be scheduled. I know we're working on that. But just to hear your own perspectives about what you see, anything you've experienced as maybe a challenge in either retention, attraction, anything pertinent to that total rewards conversation. So you all have a very unique vantage point to that, and we certainly want to capture that. So those will be coming up, and hopefully we'll wrap those up within the next couple of weeks. So then the third piece to the total rewards, of course, is the more objective analysis. So to this point, we've done a medical plan benchmark. What I can share, and we'll, certainly as we have more formal report outs with all the data together, you'll see these numbers. But what I can share initially is just that your medical plan does benchmark very nicely compared to what you would consider, your market competition or what's normative to your market. So the benefit plans look really nice. We'll certainly share a lot more detail about that. And then not only on the benefit plans, but we'll look at, an analysis around your PTO, retirement plans. Just putting all that data together so you really get a good combination of themes coming out from both an objective standpoint and the qualitative data based on the ability and the leadership sentiment.
What's her name?
Looks like there is a hand raised. Is there a question?
I just have a question. Did you say our healthcare benefits are favorable for this market?
So when I say that, yes, so I mean in terms of the cost that you're asking your employees to pay compared to things like the deductibles, the out-of-pocket maximums. When we looked at a benchmark compared to other municipalities within this region, we slice the data a few different ways. So we look at it, compared to local organizations in Indiana. We also look at it, we pull out more of a nationwide swap, looking at municipalities. So again, I know it will be more helpful to see all this when you have the data in front of you. But yes, looking at things like your deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, co-insurance, employee premiums, HSA contributions, all those things are looking really favorable compared to market.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So that's the update on the total rewards front. So any questions on that piece before I turn it over to Abby for the compensation update?
Okay, looks like we're good. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I'll take it from here for the compensation portion of the project. So just a little bit of an update in terms of timing. We did have a slight delay to getting started with pulling in some of our job matches from other municipalities as well as larger databases. And I think the primary reason for that is we really lean heavy on completed and updated job descriptions for that portion of the project. That's us taking a look at your job descriptions internally, comparing them out to the market to make sure we can match to appropriate other similarities in both the private and the public sector as well. but we are moving now. I know we have just a short list of kind of outstanding job descriptions that we are hoping to get finalized.
That's the prosecutor pointing to himself.
Yeah, he's in here, he's pointing to himself. The recorder too. Keep going, Abby.
I wasn't gonna point any fingers.
I will.
For those other departments where we've received all, if not most, of the job descriptions, we have moved forward with that job matching process, and have already started with the meetings of some of the department heads to gather their feedback. So we've met with community corrections, the assessor last week, and then we have the sheriff's department, county clerk, and coroner all in the process of getting scheduled or scheduled for early next week as well. And I've got a growing list for Megan to help with some additional introductions this week so we can again continue to get those meetings scheduled. The feedback portion, just so everyone is clear, we're not reviewing data at that step of the project. Again, that's the process of us making sure the matches that we pulled are a well fit compared to your roles internally. Even though we do have data pulled on the back end in terms of what we can see from our process, what we're sharing with those department heads is really focused on making sure that those matches are appropriate. It's human nature, once anyone sees data like that, your eye goes right towards it. So we want to make sure that the foundation of the project is well established before we get to any of the next steps.
So what she's saying is no dollar figures are on any of these meetings that we're meeting with the department heads about. It's really just making sure we take the core of each job description. We're talking with the subject matter expert, which is each elected official or department head, making sure that the matches pulled from private sector, public sector, that those completely match that job description for our employee. But there's no dollar figures attached to that at all. And I sit in on every meeting.
That's all that I had in terms of an update from the compensation side. Were there any questions I could help address?
No, for me.
Yes, could you give us an update on your progress and the timeline with, how it pertains to our budget workshop that will be this summer? What is it, July the 12th through the 14th or 15th?
Yep, absolutely. So we did send out an updated, really high-level total rewards and compensation project timeline. The biggest impact from that original kind of structure that we had, we've been pushed back about 1 month. So right now we're looking at delivering kind of the final recommendations and determinations at the July 12th council meeting. And then we will be, again, according to that timeline, we're doing some sort of presentation or update on the project at each council meeting leading up to that.
Okay, thank you. So as far as our preparation for the budget workshop this summer, let's just dovetail into that as far as how this factors in. We did an assignment of our budget liaison offices amongst us, and we talked about reaching out and meeting with the elected officials and department heads June 16th through the 17th, and then June 24th is the deadline for elected officials and department heads to return their budget Form 1s into the auditor's office. And then by June 28th, we're getting bullet-pointed reports from our meetings with each elected official and department head to each other to review. And then, of course, our budget workshop, July 12th through the 14th or 15th. I would say it's very likely it'll go through the 15th. It did last year, especially with getting this information from you all on the 12th. We're going to need some time to process that. And Auditor Crum, do you have any recommendations at this point as far as, well, this is just something up for discussion, right? This will be new information coming to all of us on July 12th. So do we look at August as being the time when we really delve into salary numbers? Do we even attempt to do it towards the end of the week in July? Certainly.
I think you're gonna have to attempt.
We'll
To
attempt.
at least put a number in place
Yes.
without these numbers. And then you're gonna have to delve in and make a decision.
How much,
One second, if you wouldn't mind, Councilman Williams. Just want to finish this train of thought. So in the past, when department heads and elected officials have submitted their budgets, we have asked that they make no change from last year, just to make things clear and clean, and then we'll deal with that independently. So let's have that be the same for this year, and we'll get that information at our council meeting on the morning of July 12th, and then after that, we get right into the budget workshops. We all have a lot to digest and talk as the week progresses and make progress on that, but surely we'll be talking about it more in the follow-up budget hearing in August. Okay, yes, sir, Councilman Williams.
how much right sizing do we anticipate? So the first person comes to us and says, hey, based on this job description, based on our research and our information, this person should be at this level, like they're under leveled. Are we anticipating right sizing this year? Salaries?
Right, well, what happened, 4 or so
I mean-
years ago, we had a big amount of a gap to accomplish, particularly in certain areas. In some cases, we had to, break it up into chunks. We'd take care of this much of an increase this year, this much the next year, this much the following year. So I think all that needs to be. Would you mind stepping up to the podium, prosecutor? Thank you.
Prosecutor Kent Eastwood, to your point, Madam President, last time I think the council identified, we saw, okay, how bad was the gap? And the council identified those that had the worst gap, that they addressed those first, and then everyone else, they would, it just depended on money, how much money you guys had, and then a commitment from the council to do that in a orderly fashion, whether it's 2 or 3 years. I know like with our office, we originally agreed to do it in 3 years, and then we worked some budget things out, reduced some budgets here, and we got it down to 2 years. But they first identified those who were the worst off and tried to address those immediately, if that answers your question.
Somewhat. Thank you. Is there, and Abby, maybe this is a question for you and your team. Will you be giving us some kind of analysis that says, hey, to the prosecutor's point, here are the worst off individuals, but also a plan to get them there. Here's a 2-year plan. Here's a 3-year plan if you want to right size this, because if we have 3 years to do it, by the time we get to the 3rd year, are we doing it to scale where they're not now still 3 years behind of where they should have been? Am I complicating this?
You're not complicating it at all. You're speaking to exactly what some of our deliverables will be.
So they're going to give us that plan. Are we going to have I'm trying to get to are we going to have a number? Hey, you are underpaying X amount of employees, and you need $1 million to make up this gap. Are we going to have that number? When are we going to have that number, and how are we going to adjust for it? There's no sense in us doing all of this great work from first person and coming in and saying everybody stay flat. I think that's the worst thing you can do. Our employees work hard every day. They need to be compensated. We don't want to lose them. How do we get them to that level? What is that number going to be? And we need to know that going into the budget workshop, not the morning of. There's going to be a number. How soon can we get that number, I guess is my question, from first person.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple pieces that go into that that I think are going to be helpful leading up to what that final number is going to look like. The first of which, on our updated timeline, we should have a finalized salary structure, which again, that's going to look like placing all of our positions in what we would recommend their salary range be. So a minimum and a maximum level. The final piece of then applying in the person that's sitting in that seat, right, and comparing that to where that range is in their current salary level is what we would deem our gap analysis. We don't want to start that process until we have a structure that's finalized and approved by everyone, because obviously that can adjust and change as we go down the line. Honestly, once we have that finalized structure, we're only speaking about a matter of a couple of days before we can have a gap analysis turned around. We likely still want to talk and discuss philosophy and development on, should we attack at a 2-year plan or a 3-year plan, but those steps can come down along the way in terms of just getting a physical number number in front of you. Again, realistically speaking, we're talking about a few days after having a finalized structure. And according to our timeline, we are hoping to have that done by about mid-June.
Nope, I appreciate it. And I guess the last piece of all of this is, whenever we get that number, it ultimately is up to the department heads of where they, am I right? It's up to you all technically of where, if there's a gap hypothetically in the prosecutor's office of $10,000, you would be the one to adjust based on, I guess what Abby said, of where that person sits. You want to keep them within the range,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to take them to the max.
Well, I'll say last time what we did was, like, for instance, we broke our prosecutors down into 3 different levels, level 1, 2, and 3. And then, say, level 1 salary range, just for hypothetical reasons, was between 70 and 80. And if we had a person that had like 10 years experience, we would ask that their salary be closer to 80. If we had 2 years experience, we were
Back down to
70. So those are things that we looked at as department heads, if we had a range. That's how we did the
Yeah,
prosecutor's
no,
office.
my biggest thing is as we go into the budget cycle, let's know what that number is, and also give, I think not only the auditor needed, every department head needs it to say, hey, if you have 4 employees from the recorder's office, hypothetically, that are not within range, you need to figure out where they need to be. Tell us that. That way when we come in, we're looking at real numbers.
Yes, and it could affect the other budget numbers too.
That's what I'm thinking. It could affect everything else in that budget, that whole salary piece, trying to just right size it. I know Nick Parr's in the back shaking his head because we've had this conversation. I'm a huge fan and proponent of making sure that our employees are compensated at the best level so we keep them and retain them. So that needs to be a huge focus for us in this budget cycle.
Yes, and Baker Tilly won't be able to give you true numbers if we don't.
And Elise or Aaron, can you guys just clarify, are your final budget numbers due in August?
October is when the auditor's office submits
Well,
it.
September has to be advertised.
Okay.
Advertised in September, you can make adjustments after that, but October, whatever you submit is the gospel. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Going back to the comment about mid-June, about these numbers perhaps being available mid-June. Just thinking through if there's, but we don't get them until the July meeting on the 12th. So is that reason to come together in a special meeting to get those numbers earlier rather than later?
It would make sense to do that, yes.
As busy as the budget cycle is, it's a disservice to dismiss, not that we would do it, but to not focus on that salary piece first.
Absolutely.
And Baker Tilly isn't going to be able to give you a good financial plan without knowing what first person is suggesting.
Okay, so yes, this study is an absolute priority for this budget session, this budget workshop and season. So, council, what about coming together for a special meeting to receive these numbers as soon as they're available? And could we identify a date today?
I don't know if I'm ready to identify a date today. I agree with the whole concept of a special meeting, if that's the only item on the agenda.
She said mid-June.
Right.
Mid-June is what they had talked about.
Now, you would not have it in time for our council meeting, which is mid-June. Could we look at perhaps getting those numbers by, I'm here,
14th.
Can we extend the council?
June 14th? Would that be possible?
So it's all subject to how quickly the rest of the project moves along. Right now, again, that finalized structure of where all of this position should fall is due to be done by that council meeting and presented on the 14th. So if
It's a quick turnaround.
if that gets approved, then again, it would just be a few days after to when we could have that initial number.
So you're
So
not,
Abby, if there was a special meeting, say, in the last week of June,
has to be after June 14th.
as long as we get that finalized on the 14th, that should work.
Yes.
Would that work for you all?
So basically, we have the 2 weeks after June 14th to have a special meeting. I mean, I guess that would have to work. Everybody would have to figure that out. We'll figure it out between the auditor's office and the vice president, president. We'll figure out a time. And because part of that is making sure you all are available during that meeting as well.
Can we figure that date out now?
I can, yeah.
Is anything,
Would you all be able to give us
these two
a couple dates and times to choose from and try to lock that down right
yeah, I'm
now?
out.
You're out.
I'm out.
Wait, yep, I can take a look at least the comps,
Well,
the comp sheets schedule to make sure we're available.
I'm out that week too.
Okay, let's try to nail this down now if at all possible. I think that would be a good.
Let's figure it out now, if you don't mind. Are you able to pull up, is it to pull up, are you able to? All right, I can.
Okay, we're waiting to hear a couple of dates from you all.
Well, just one of our counselor Hostetter has to, she's gonna be virtual for a portion of it, but the rest of us that can meet in person can. What days don't work for you is a better question to start off with. Like absolutely don't work, you did the virtual part. June 20th is Juneteenth, that's a holiday for some people. I prefer not to do a Friday. Is there a day that doesn't work, like a Friday that doesn't work for people?
Right now, I can do it any day, the 20th or July 1st. I just have to be virtual.
Thursday the 23rd.
I'm available. Mr. Lance?
It's a
Works for
special
me,
meeting, so I
June
can
23rd.
attend Blue Jeans. Yeah.
Can she do the Blue Jeans? June 23rd, which is a Thursday.
Team is wide open, our comp team is wide open.
Great.
All right, can we
Let's
work with
book
you
it.
on that? We'll work with the auditor's office to help make sure that's on the calendar and booked for you all.
8:30 a.m.
Do we have to call a
Sounds good.
special
I'm
meeting
gonna
too?
block our calendars so we don't put
I'm
anything
gonna have
else
to put a
on the
notice
table.
up,
We will, we'll have to
put a notice up, advertise for it.
We don't have to do that until
8 a.m., is that what we said?
8:30.
8:30?
Good. Excellent. Put it on your calendars. I'm gonna do that right now, excuse me. All right. Any
I'm
other
on
comments or
vacation that
questions?
day, But I think Megan Nair will be available.
Oh,
Who's on vacation?
Their legal counsel, Katie.
I'm just saying I'll be on vacation that day, but I think the rest, I'm the least important person at that meeting, so
Okay.
Megan Nair will be available.
23rd, 8:30.
If the call.
And I just want to stress that this timeline is contingent upon when I receive things,
yes,
my ability to communicate with first person in my spare time,
yes.
and the council involvement on decisions that we need your decision on.
Yes.
Okay, so if this is a priority, let's make it a priority and make sure we're letting everybody know they need to turn in their stuff and, you know,
Is there anything we can do to help and/or, like, looking at those focus groups, like if someone in that focus group hasn't done something, like my group, could you say, hey, reach out to so-and-so from your group and get them to turn this in? Okay.
that would be helpful. And I think just knowing that decisions are gonna have to be made, like we have data pulled, but at what weight do you want the data rated? Do you want it split 25, 25, 25 between municipalities and private sector? Like, how are we rating these? These are all questions that involve council decisions.
What does first person recommend on that front, being the ones who have the expertise, not necessarily us?
So they've seen it across the board on, I mean, it really is a decision from the council, but
What
right
would you
now it's
recommend?
rated at 25% all the way through until we hear some direction. But
Okay.
go ahead, Abby.
Debbie,
Yeah, absolutely. So that's right, Megan. Our default right now is just at an even split between all of the weighting of the survey sources that we pull in. But as we dive in deeper into some of these specific departments that are, maybe really much more focused in just a county level and not across the board for say, for example, the private sector, we may want to adjust what that looks like. I think a good time to kind of get through those discussion pieces will be once we have some of these job match meetings done with the department heads and we feel confident in the matches that we have. And then we can certainly pull together maybe a recorded video or some training to walk through what we mean by adjusting those weights to get some input from the council and the commissioners as well.
And I think the input, Abby, that's really needed is, who do you think you compete with for talent? Is it other municipalities? Is it the state? Is it private sector employers? And some of that will go into what that wage should be. And like Abby said, it might be different based on department. So you might compete a lot more for private sector employers like engineers and things like that. Because the private sector pays much higher, but you might not. You might be competing with other municipalities for different jobs.
I think that's something we need to make sure we're hitting with our department heads and elected officials, because I think from what I'm hearing from the council, you guys are gonna heavily rely on your experts out here to let you know who their competition is. Like the prosecutor is gonna be different than potentially the courthouse and all of that.
Yes, I would say that that's accurate. We really are looking to you all to be the experts on any weighting. Is that fair?
I'm sorry, I stepped away, but.
Oh, we're just talking about, different departments. They may be competing more with the private sector, or they may be competing more with county governments or municipal governments, and just having their input on where their biggest competition comes.
But it's a huge difference. So we have one comp right now, I have it, and you guys would be surprised. So how those are weighted is going to make a huge difference in the ranking and salary increments of these positions. So if we're pulling in more private sector data, it's going up. So those are your considerations.
Okay, well, I think between input from our elected officials and department heads, as well as input from first person, you are our experts overall, and we really are gonna be relying upon you to guide us as far as what's reasonable and appropriate.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Thank you, Megan. All right, and with that, any public comment?
Mr. Nick Farr.
ARP money, just
Yes.
appropriate that in the 500,000 we're going down.
Say that again?
We'll have to approve that, or is that automatically happening?
That's done.
Like, we did,
Last meeting, John brought up that, we had given Northtown the, money they had requested from ARPA. John felt like we should offer them another 500,000, so that's what he's.
well, that's what was, the commissioner came up with the other 500, didn't he, originally?
Yeah,
Make it even $2
the ARP budget is for $2 million for that specific project, and there was I think a discussion on that. The ask was for $2 million. There was a discussion, and there wasn't all the data that needed to be, in your decision-making, and I think that after looking at that it makes sense to do the full amount that was budgeted for them, because at the end of the day, any shortfall from the $2 million, the individual constituents have to make that up. And so that's the purpose of particularly the ARP funds in these big water sewer projects, is to take away that burden that then is placed on the constituents themselves based on all the economic factors that we've had to deal with as we've gone through the pandemic, endemic. So it makes a lot of sense what you presented, John, with regards to that. So it's really matching out the monies that are budgeted for that, and therefore the constituents won't have to make up that difference. And it's substantial, and it's over a long period of time. So it makes sense to do that.
So I'd make the motion that we go ahead and give the 500,000 to make it a $2 million to the Thorntown town, I guess it is, for their sewer project.
Okay, can we do that without having amended the agenda, or do we need to look at that for next?
It's old business.
It's already been on there.
You guys have considered, and it's been discussed in a meeting prior, so I think that you could consider it moving forward.
Okay.
You made a motion?
I will, yes. Make a motion to give them 500,000 for the sewer project.
Okay, do we have a second?
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Because weren't they paying interest on some of the loans and
Oh,
stuff?
yeah, they already are.
Yeah, makes sense.
John, would you like to call Corinne Gray and share the good
We'll
news?
set it up.
What were you saying? What were you about to say?
Because it took so long to get the money.
Because they were paying interest, yeah, I remember.
I just had one from the previous conversation. I didn't get up here before you moved on to public comment, but back to the compensation study project. I think it's important that we make sure that that compensation that we currently have and the programs that we currently have gets to our employees. It's very important, and it's extremely important to me that our people get paid. We got reimbursements being taken, or reimbursements that we can't be getting right now, that money's being withheld from checks. And I want to find a method or a way to prevent that from happening in the future, so we can continue to. We're locked in right now with our deductions for this FSA dependent care situation, and the money continues to be taken out of checks, and we cannot get that reimbursement, and therefore pay for the dependent care. So we're paying for dependent care, we're getting deductions from the check, but we can't get the reimbursements. So I don't know. It's not my role, but I don't know if it's possible if the federal government allows it. That could be done as like the HSA is currently done. But right now, nothing but roadblocks. We're talking several months into this year. The deduction technically started in January, even though they weren't withheld from the checks. They were withheld from the checks, kind of. But
The second check in January is the one because that started the new year.
so we don't have. We were getting money into our FSA accounts. And now we're going to have to pay that back because it technically wasn't deducted from the checks, but it was put into our FSA accounts. So there's possibly 3 hits that happen to the same individual's paychecks. They're going to get a deduction. They're going to get the makeup removed from their check that they didn't actually get deducted in the first check in January. Plus, they're going to have to pay for dependent care. So a significant burden on employees. We talk about compensation, but it's important that they get that actually gets to them. So if we're going to come up with any new programs, we need to find a better way to implement them or to make sure that our people get them. And in the current situation, we've hit an emergency status. We need something taken care of. I've emailed all of you, HR and the auditor's office as well. We need to see some action. There's going to be significant ramifications for not taking care of our employees. It's already bad enough as it is. The wage market has continued to escalate, and we did do a pretty good bump at the highway department, but that's not enough to keep up with what's going on right now. It is very hard to find people, much less good people. So wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. I want to be part of the solution if necessary. I really just want to get it fixed.
I mean, I'll acknowledge, I know, I'm sure we all received your email, but because of the sensitivity of it, I'm happy to talk offline with you and whoever. I agree, 100%. I agree, but without getting into personnel matters too much, I agree 100% with where you are. I'm happy to talk to you afterwards.
I'll be available. Thank you.
Thank you.
With respect to the jail commission, this evening is going to be the last meeting, is that correct, Councilman Williams? And we've had several in the past several months, so I'm going to make a motion that in the May meeting that we have a public hearing for the jail lit 0.2%, and then in addition for the form of payment, and this will be for the discussion on that same May agenda for the Boone County Council for the method of payment using the BOT, Build, Operate, Transfer. Bring that resolution forth. So I'm going to make a motion.
I don't think you can make a motion on that. Auditor Crum, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
You have to wait till the meeting.
Yeah.
You can't make a motion now. Unless we do once
So in
Unless
May,
you're meeting for tonight's meeting. Unless you're making a motion for tonight's meeting.
how do I get it on the May agenda? That it,
You tell us to put it on the May agenda and then the president approves it.
and then we'll make that motion on the May agenda. Okay, okay, okay. So I'm asking you now. So I'm asking you now to put on the May agenda for the Boone County Council meeting, and you can do that. Okay, good. That's what I want. Thank you.
All right. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So move.
And a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.